This is group number 3. We will now introduce ourselves and our roles. My name is Mia Bella Hubbard, and my role is discussion director. Now, each of you will say your name and role.
My name is Kendra Lency, and I'm the literary luminary.
My name is Matthew Nolan, and I'm the summarizer.
My name is Abigail Hawk, and I'm the connector.
Our goal today is to connect, compare, and contrast different events and aspects of Kingdom's Dawn. We will begin with a brief summary from the summarizer. Please share the one major event and, most importantly, the event's significance and relationship to each other.
I think a first big event was Leonad's father, Peyton, dying. I think this event was significant because it was kind of a coming-of-age story for Leonad and made him think of the king throughout the story and his faith to the kingdom.
I agree with that because I feel like when his father died, Leonad kind of had to step up and start taking care of himself as well as Tess to make sure that they could survive and thrive and not get killed.
Yeah, the death of Peyton kind of led to a coming of age for Leonad too, I feel.
I kind of disagree with the scene because I felt like that was just such a random aspect of the story to add, because right after he was fighting with his so-called older brother Zane, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
It was just kind of random to see that they killing his father, because how they know the father was there is the question.
Yeah, I just think the scene in itself was kind of odd, but it affected how Leonad thought and felt throughout the story, and it kind of brought him down at times, but helped him go back up and persevere at other times.
It kind of added more depth and emotion to the plot of the story too.
Yeah, and his faith to the king, because that's the only reason why he started believing that he was ultimately serving the king with his sword and stuff.
I agree.
Thank you, summarizer. We will now move to our literary luminary, who will share some insightful quotes. Literary luminary, please share 2 quotes.
One quote I chosen was when Tess in chapter 10, Mastery Unveiled. It's like a friend told me, it's important to look on the bright sides of things. And another quote I chose was when Leonad said in chapter 14, Question of Faith, my sword is yours, my hands and arms are yours, my heart is yours, and my life is yours. I shall always be humble before my fellow servants. On your sword, I swear it. I chose these quotes because I felt when Tess was saying this, it would help Leonad believe again about because he was a slave for pharaohs, right? And being a slave, that's not good at all. Come on. And I guess it's just that even in all the ups and downs when they were facing these awful tragic events, that Tess was still able to be happy and all sunshine and stuff. And my other quote, I felt it was important because it helped bring Leonad's faith back to the king after struggling since he was literally hanged somewhere in the desert dying. And it's a start of his journey. He's finally starting to understand his meaning in life,
Yeah, I definitely think that those are really important. And for the first one, I feel Tess and Leonad really needed each other in order to get through everything they went through, Peyton dying, their house burning down, and being enslaved. I think if they didn't have each other, they wouldn't have gotten through it. And so I think that quote just really shows how strong their relationship and dependency on each other was.
Yeah. I also feel the second quote, it's very important because the book is a Christian fiction book. So that last quote that Lena was saying, I think that's kind of have an effect on how we should be loyal to God and strengthen our religion and our faith.
I also think the last quote is important because it just shows the king how much Leonad is going to prove his worth to him.
Thank you for sharing those insightful quotes, Literary Luminary. Now, we will have our connector link her book to our world and our own lives.
I think one important connection to the real world from the text was when Lena tried to warn the people about the Vactor deluge. And I think that this was really important, and I like related to it because there have been times when I went to go tell people something, especially people who were older than me or thought they had more authority than me, and they wouldn't listen simply because I was younger. And the fact that the people wouldn't listen to Lenad because they thought that they were just more important than him and that he was just some random person, I just related to that because I feel like that's definitely happened to me. And I think it's particularly annoying because Lenad knew that the Vactor deluge was coming and the people wouldn't listen to him. And so, like, when you know that something is true and people can, like, keep saying that you're lying, that's, like, a really just, like, breaking feeling. Like, it really, like, breaks you down. And another thing was when Lenad, like, wasn't able to fully mourn his father's death until, like, days later. And I feel like a quote it said in the book was Lenad had never had a chance to fully mourn his father. And I related to that just because I feel like there's times when life moves too fast and there's not enough time to process things. And it's just like, even if they're small, like Peyton's death, or big like Peyton's death, or small like other things, there's just a lot of times where like things will happen and it doesn't I don't fully grasp the emotion of that until days later because like everything's happening so fast. And so I think when Lenad like finally broke down, I kind of was just like I feel that. Like there's been so many times where it's just like days after something happened, I'm like, well, okay, now it's actually hitting.
I heavily agree with the first one because growing up with an older brother who's always apparently right, it's not the best experience when you're trying to prove that you're right when in general he's always like, oh, you're wrong, that's not true, yada yada yada.
I agree with the second one because like most of the time I don't really show any type of emotion with my family and stuff. And I remember like when it was my grandfather's funeral, I couldn't show like any emotion at all. Like I was just standing there like probably eating cake or something, and I couldn't grasp it until like a couple days later. And then I like started breaking down because like my grandfather, he was always taking care of me when I was younger and stuff. Like since my mom was always busy, he was there to help me like take care of my wounds. But like just realizing like my 5-year-old self that he's dead and like he couldn't come back, it just like broke me.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I can also relate to like see when you said in like maybe a smaller way, because I feel like even like there's big ways that we can't like express our emotions, like what you said, Kendra, but then there's also smaller ways. Like I feel like recently with the transition into high school that a bunch of stress keeps like building up and you just don't have time to like express your emotions, because it's also like with sports and everything, like you don't have time because everything's moving so fast. And then once you start to like have like some downtime and quiet time, your mind starts to race and then you can get really anxious.
It's like when there's work to be done that you already finished, but like you're stressed out and you're like, I should be able to do something right now because work keeps stacking up, and it feels like if you don't do something, you're not gonna earn anything from it. Like with your grades and stuff, I feel like I'm not doing anything. It feels like my grades gonna plummet down all the way to like 60
I
or
can
something.
relate that a lot because lately, like, I don't know, I've like been like, I like write an essay and then rewrite it because I feel like it's not good enough.
Right.
So
I definitely agree with that because like especially what you said with sports, like
Mhm.
having like school and sports and like just like a ton of, and like personal life too, there's just a lot going on. And then there'll be like times where you have like a moment to yourself and everything kind of just hits you and you're like, oh
yeah.
wow guys. Yeah, I definitely relate to that.
Alright, so thank you, Connector. Now I will ask you all some questions as the director. I will not answer my own questions until all of you have shared your answer. It's all good. That particular question. Hi. But please understand that I may need to encourage you to share if you aren't sharing, just as I may need to ask you to hold your response until we hear from others. This is also a time for you to engage in questions from one another. Remember, our goal is to link our books and identify similarities between characters, conflicts, themes, or even central ideas to earn the highest grade. So one of the first questions that I have is, how would the story change if Lena never met Tess? So Kendra, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I feel like at the you know that time where they got like they got enslaved. I feel like Leonard wouldn't have like been as strong as he was at that moment because Tess was was like basically his only reason to continue on because he wanted to give her like a good life even though they were stuck in this position and stuff. So I think that's like if without like Tess, I don't think he would have had any reason to keep going with like dealing with this like brutality from slavery and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree because I think Tess was kind of, after Peyton died, Tess was like Leonard's anchor, and without her, like I feel like he wouldn't have survived as long as he did, and he would have been like emotionally and probably physically just like way weaker because like he would have like not had Tess to like be there and like grounding him and like holding him in his place.
Yeah, Matthew, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so I think it would change the story a little bit, but not that drastically, because when Leonard's father was dying, before he was dying, or while he was dying, I should say, he told Leonard to go get Tess, but if she wasn't there, it would give Leonard more time to mourn his father dying and process what is actually happening.
Oh, and probably like maybe save his father because he was gonna get that blacksmith guy.
Yes, he could.
Yeah, I kind of took it in like a negative and positive way. I also like relate with you guys on how you said that like Tess was Leonard's like vice throughout the whole journey, but I also said that in like a negative way because Tess was kind of like a burden to Leonard, like especially like during the Vactor deluge, because he had to like worry about like providing and protecting Tess throughout the book. But I think mainly she has a beneficial cause because she really helps like Leonard's mental health throughout the book.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So number 2, why do you think the author included the death of Peyton in the story? Yeah, we already kind of went over this, but we can kind of go more in depth.
I feel like a lot of it was probably to set up the aspect of like Leonard questioning his like faith to the king, because that kind of represents like people questioning their faith with God. And so I think had Peyton not died, Leonard probably wouldn't have questioned, or at least not as heavily as he did, his faith for the king, because Peyton was always there like reassuring like, no, we're serving the king, like the king is real. So I think that's probably a part of the reason why.
Yeah. What about you, Kendra?
I guess it was like an important like event to the story since that was just like his father dying and like his mother died when he was at the age of 8, so like after that it would have just been like a huge impact on him and stuff. But what's it called? I guess it was just like a coming of age for him, like you said earlier. Like he's finally stepping up to be like the man of the house, the one who's gonna be taking care of everything and everyone, like Tess and stuff. So
Yeah. We'll just wait.
Okay. Well, everyone, great work today. I'm impressed with all of our answers and connections to the book. Did anybody want to add any additional closing thoughts?
what was the king doing there in the middle of a desert? That's my question.
That's a good question.
I kind of think it like relates to like some stories in the Bible because it's like a
Right.
Christian
Oh, like
fiction
how
book
like
also.
God
Yeah.
came down to
Yeah,
us to help.
exactly.
I agree with that. Okay.
Excellent. We will now close today's first Lit Circle discussion. Thank you all for coming.